It was supposed to be a quiet Thursday. I had just finished washing the dishes when Amanda walked out of the room, arms crossed, eyes cold. She didn't sit down, didn't hesitate. "I cheated on you," she said bluntly, as if announcing the weather forecast. My stomach sank and I couldn't find the words. She looked at me. No remorse, no tears. Just that stare. Then she added, almost with amusement, "I needed a real man." I was frozen. My wife of 7 years had just spat those words like venom, and I suddenly didn't recognize the woman in front of me. I asked why. I didn't yell. I asked, calmly. Because even with the humiliation, I wanted to understand. She laughed. She laughed. "You're too soft," she said. "You never fight back. You just let life walk all over you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All the nights I stayed up working to support her beauty salon, the times I canceled plans to take care of her sick mother, none of it mattered. The worst part? I could see she had made peace with it. She didn't expect forgiveness, didn't want it. It was a declaration, not an apology. I stood there, swallowing a mixture of anger, pain, and disbelief. Then from the hallway, I heard the front door open. It was Mark and Luke, my two closest friends. They walked in as if they owned the place, smiling. "Told you he'd take it like a wimp," Mark sneered. Luke gave Amanda a high five. They knew. They had been involved. And they had chosen her side. It was as if the floor had disappeared. We had spent so many weekends together, so many trips to Miami, so many barbecues in the backyard of this very house. Mark was my best man. Luke helped me renovate this apartment. And now they were there on the other side with smiles that mocked my pain. I looked at Amanda again. Her hair shone under the living room light. That hair I used to stroke while we watched movies on the couch. The same lips that said "I love you" now curved into a sneer. 7 years. 7 years building a life that had just collapsed in less than 5 minutes. "Since when?" I managed to ask, my voice firmer than I expected. "Long enough," Amanda replied, exchanging glances with Mark. "Do you really want the details, Richard?" Richard. Not even my full name. Not Honey. Not Ricky, as she used to call me. Richard. As if we were just acquaintances now. The pain was giving way to something darker inside me. A growing emptiness, a sense of unreality. As if I were watching it all happen to someone else. "You're pathetic," Luke said, breaking the silence. "Look at you. You can't even react like a man." I could feel my pulse in my throat. Their words were needles, each one piercing deeper. The apartment we bought together, where we planned to have kids someday, now felt like a strange, hostile place. The pictures on the wall, our photos in Hawaii, at her sister's wedding, on New Year's Eve in Times Square, seemed to belong to other people. "Are you just going to stand there?" Amanda provoked, taking a step toward me. I could smell her perfume, the same one I had given her for her birthday 2 months ago. "Aren't you going to do anything? Yell? Break something?" That's what she wanted. An explosion. A confirmation that I was the problem. A justification. But something inside me refused to give her that satisfaction. I wouldn't be her convenient villain. The world around me seemed to narrow. My heart hammered, my fists clenched, but I didn't hit anyone, I didn't yell. I just walked to the kitchen, took my keys from the hook, and turned to Amanda one last time. "You're going to regret this," I said quietly. She rolled her eyes, already walking toward Mark. I left. The night air hit my face like ice. For a second I couldn't breathe. I got into my old sedan and drove aimlessly. The city of Los Angeles blurred past the window. Neon lights, bars, empty streets. My hands were shaking. I thought about crashing the car, just to feel something other than this overwhelming sense of betrayal. I stopped near a gas station on the freeway and sat there looking at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Who was this man? Was she right? Had I really become weak? At some point I ended up at a simple motel near the freeway exit. I paid with cash. I didn't want to leave any traces. The room was small, dusty, and smelled of cigarettes. But it was quiet, and I needed quiet. I lay on the bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. My phone vibrated once, then again, and again. I ignored it. But at 4:17 a.m., I had 27 missed calls, all from Amanda. What did she want now? To laugh a little more? To humiliate me even further? Or was there some crumb of decency left in that woman I once loved so much? I threw the phone on the nightstand and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. I saw the smiles of Mark and Luke, my friends, my wife, my life. I got up and went to the small window in the room, the highway in the distance, a few cars passing despite the hour. I thought about our story, how we met at that party downtown, when she spilled a drink on my shirt and, instead of apologizing, laughed and said it improved my look. How we stayed up until dawn talking on a park bench near her house. The plans we made. Our honeymoon in Cancun. The day she cried on my shoulder when she lost her job at the clothing store. The proud smile when she opened her own salon. Where did I lose that woman? At what point did I stop being enough? Or was I never enough? The sky was starting to lighten when my phone vibrated again. Another call from her. This time she sent a message. Please answer. It's important. Something in the tone of the message bothered me. It didn't sound like the arrogant Amanda from hours ago. I waited. Another message. I'm scared. It's not safe. My heart raced, but not with anger this time, with worry. What the hell was going on? I tried to call her back. Nothing. I called Mark. Nothing either. Luke? Straight to voicemail. I put on my jacket and left the motel without even checking out. My mind was racing. What could have changed? Was it a trap? Or had something really gone wrong? My chest tightened at the thought of her being hurt. Despite everything, a part of me still cared. That part disgusted me, but it was there. I drove. Back to the neighborhood, adrenaline flooding every inch of my body. The drive back to Los Angeles seemed endless. The morning traffic was already starting to form on the freeway. Honking horns, motorcycles weaving between cars, the sun rising behind the buildings. I tried calling Amanda a few more times, nothing. The fear grew, not for me, but for her. I took the exit downtown, cut through some streets to avoid the congestion. I knew those roads well. It was the route I took every day to get home from my job at the IT company where I was a project manager. The house we bought together after 3 years of saving. The house where we planned our future. The house where everything ended hours ago. As I got closer to our street, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Red and blue lights flashing up ahead. Police cars, an ambulance. My foot slammed on the brake. The house was lit up like a crime scene. I ran toward it, passing the yellow tape. A police officer stopped me, but I yelled, "She's my wife." He looked at me. Something in his eyes made me stop. That's when I saw the stretcher. Amanda was alive, barely. Her face was pale, a deep cut on her shoulder. The paramedics were working fast. Mark was sitting on the curb, his face bloody, his shirt torn. Luke was nowhere to be found. A detective approached me. "Are you her husband?" I nodded. He looked at me as if trying to read my soul. "Do you know anyone who might want to hurt her?" I shook my head, speechless. Then Mark yelled, "It was Luke! He went crazy, said she tricked him too." My mind was spinning. Amanda had slept with Mark and Luke, both of them, and Luke had snapped. It didn't make sense, and at the same time it made perfect sense. The detective didn't seem surprised. We've had reports on Luke before. Something about gambling debts, mental problems. He's on the run now. I watched Amanda being taken to the ambulance, and a wave of unexpected emotion hit me. Not love, not sadness. Pity. She looked so small, so broken. The woman who had once mocked me now looked like a child in pain, and yet a part of me hated that I cared. But something else was stirring inside me. A change. I wasn't the weak one anymore. "Do you want to go with her?" asked one of the paramedics. The ambulance door opened. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to turn my back, just as she had done to me. It would be fair, wouldn't it? But another part, perhaps the one Amanda called too soft, couldn't abandon her like that. I will, I replied, and got into the ambulance. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Amanda was semi-conscious, groaning in pain whenever we hit a bump. The paramedic checked her vitals, spoke technical terms on the radio. I sat in the corner looking at my hands still dirty from the motel dust. "Did you two have a fight?" the paramedic asked as he adjusted her IV. "No," I replied without elaborating. How to explain all that? How to say that hours earlier my wife had humiliated me in the worst way possible? That my best friends were involved? That I had left the house swearing never to return? We arrived at the hospital. The typical rush of an emergency room. Doctors, nurses, stretchers in the hallway. They took Amanda to a room and I was directed to the waiting area. I sat in a hard plastic chair, under the relentless fluorescent light. The TV in the corner showed some morning talk show. People with normal problems, how I wished I had normal problems now. My phone rang. It was my boss, Charles. I had completely forgotten about work. I answered. "Richard, everything okay? You didn't show up for the meeting with the clients?" "Sorry, Charles. There was a family emergency. My wife is in the hospital." I spoke mechanically, as if reading from a script. Wife. The word sounded strange now. Was she still my wife after what she had done? After what she had said? "My God, man, take it easy. Take care of her. Whatever you need, let me know." I hung up and went back to staring into space. 2 hours passed. A nurse finally appeared. "Family of Amanda Miller?" I stood up. "I'm her husband. She's stable. She lost a lot of blood, but we managed to control it. The cut was deep, but it didn't hit any major arteries. She was lucky." Lucky. What a strange word to describe all this. "Can I see her?" The nurse nodded and guided me down the corridors. Amanda was in a bed, hooked up to monitors, her shoulder bandaged. Her eyes were closed, but they opened when I approached. When she saw me, something passed through her gaze. Surprise? Relief? Guilt? I couldn't decipher it. "Richard." Her voice was a hoarse whisper. I stood beside the bed not knowing what to say. What do you say to a wife who cheated on you, humiliated you, and hours later almost died? "The doctor said you're going to be okay," I finally said. She tried to move and grimaced in pain. "You came." It wasn't a question, but I felt I owed her an answer. "I came. After what I did, what I said." "This isn't the time to talk about that," I cut in. "I didn't want to have that conversation here. Not like this." "What happened after I left?" Amanda closed her eyes again as if gathering strength. "Mark and Luke started arguing. About me. About who would be with me. As if I were a prize." A tear ran down her face. "Luke got furious. Said I had promised to leave you for him, not for Mark. That I had played them both. He had been drinking a lot. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen." She stopped, swallowing hard. I didn't need to hear the rest. The scene formed clearly, in my mind. I spent the whole night at the hospital. Not out of love, but out of a sense of duty that I couldn't explain even to myself. A police officer was on duty in the hallway. Standard procedure in assault cases, the nurse explained. In the morning, the same detective I saw at the house appeared. Detective Jones. A short man with a scruffy beard and tired eyes of someone who had seen it all. "I need your statement, Mr. Miller," he said, notepad in hand. "And your wife's, too, when she's able." I told him what I knew, omitting only the details of the affair. It was too private, too painful. Jones listened carefully, making quick notes. "You left the house before the incident, correct?" "Why?" I hesitated. "We had a fight." About? Personal matters. He stared at me, the kind of look that sees through social masks. Mr. Miller, we're investigating an attempted homicide. I need to know everything. I sighed. My wife confessed to me that she was having an affair with these two men, my friends. Jones showed no surprise. And you weren't aware of this before? No. And your reaction was to leave the house without a physical confrontation? Yes. He wrote something down, his expression neutral. Mark Stevens claims that Mr. Leo Williams had problems with drugs and debts. Can you confirm that? The pieces were fitting together now. Luke had always been the most unstable of the group. Sometimes he would disappear for days, come back with money or more broke than before. He talked about business opportunities that never materialized. There was that time he showed up with a black eye claiming he had fallen down the stairs. I suspected something, but I never knew for sure. Jones closed his notepad. We found Mr. Williams' car abandoned on the highway. We're tracking his cell phone. It's only a matter of time until we find him. When the detective left, I sat down in the armchair next to Amanda's bed. She was asleep, sedated. Her face, always so self-assured, now looked vulnerable, almost childlike. Her dark hair was spread across the white pillow. The makeup that was always impeccable was completely absent, a raw version of the woman I knew. The doctor came in to check her dressings, Dr. Peterson, according to his badge. She'll need plastic surgery later, he explained, examining the wound. But she'll make a full recovery, physically at least. And mentally? He looked at me with understanding. Traumas like this leave marks we don't see. It will depend a lot on the support she has. Support. The word echoed in my mind. It was implied that this support should come from me, the husband, the safe harbor. But what about when the safe harbor is in ruins? In the afternoon, I got a call from the police station. They had found Luke hiding at a cousin's house. He resisted arrest. He was injured, but alive. Something inside me felt relief. Not because Luke was okay, but because there wouldn't be the added guilt of a death. There was already enough destruction. Amanda woke up at the end of the day, more lucid. When our eyes met, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Shame. Why did you stay? She asked, her voice still weak. It was a good question. Why did I stay? I don't know, I answered honestly. She swallowed hard. Mark called me. He's at the police station. Luke confessed everything. Everything what? Not just the attack, the debts with loan sharks, that he was using me to get money. Her eyes filled with tears. He had been stealing from the salon for months, from our money, Richard. The irony was almost poetic. The man she cheated on me, for the real man was a thief who was stealing from her, who was stealing from us. How didn't you notice? She looked away. I was blind. We were silent for several minutes. Outside, night was falling over Los Angeles. Lights were turning on in the buildings, forming an urban constellation. So many lives, so many stories, so many loves and betrayals happening simultaneously. Did Mark know? I asked finally. I think so. In the end, at least. And yet, he still stayed with me. Yes. A bitter smile touched her lips. I really know how to pick them, don't I? I almost felt sorry. Almost. But then I remembered her words. I needed a real man. The wound was still open, throbbing. The nurse came in to check the monitors. I took the opportunity to leave, get a coffee at the hospital cafeteria. I needed to think about what to do now, about how to move on. Sitting alone at a plastic table, stirring the bad coffee with a disposable spoon, I realized I no longer felt that sharp pain. It was more of an emptiness, a space that needed to be filled with something else. Not with anger, not with revenge, with something more. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Charles, my boss. I heard what happened. Take all the time you need. And when you come back, that transfer to the San Diego branch you asked for last year, it's approved. If you still want it. San Diego. Ocean, sun, a completely new life. Far from here, far from her, far from these memories. For the first time in 2 days, I smiled. In the weeks that followed, I kept my distance. Amanda recovered. Mark pressed charges against Luke. The local media picked up the story. Love triangle ends in violence, and I became the ghost no one could track down. I took a leave of absence from work, took out some savings, and drove south. Somewhere, cold, isolated, I needed to rebuild myself. The transfer to San Diego was faster than I expected. In just 2 weeks, I was already settled in a small apartment in Pacific Beach with a view of the ocean. The office was downtown, just a 20-minute drive away. New colleagues, new challenges, a new routine. No one knew my story. No one looked at me with pity or morbid curiosity. I was just Richard, the IT manager transferred from Los Angeles. On my days off, I would walk along the boardwalk. The cold Pacific wind hit my face, clearing unwanted thoughts. I started running. First a few miles, then more. My body, previously neglected by long hours sitting in front of the computer, began to change. Stronger, more defined, more me. One Sunday, I went into a bookstore at the mall. In the self-help section, a title caught my attention. Rebuilding Yourself After Betrayal. Normally I would laugh at that kind of literature, but something made me pick up the book. In the checkout line, a woman behind me commented, "That book saved my brother after his divorce." I looked at her. Short brown hair, sharp green eyes, a gentle smile. I smiled back, not knowing what to say. "Sorry to intrude," she continued. "It's just that I recognized the cover. My brother carried that book everywhere for months." "And it helped?" "He says so. Today he's remarried with 2 daughters." "Good for him," I replied without sarcasm. It was good to know there was life after chaos. "I'm Lucy, by the way." "Richard." We exchanged polite smiles, and after paying for the book, we said goodbye. Just another casual encounter in a new city. Or so I thought. The book, to my surprise, wasn't the cliché I expected. It talked about forgiveness not as a gift to the other person, but as liberation for oneself. It talked about rebuilding, not as a return to what was before, but as the creation of something new, possibly better. I started doing the suggested exercises, writing in a journal, meditating, confronting painful memories without letting them control me. One night, while having dinner alone at a restaurant by the bay, I saw Lucy again. She was with friends at a nearby table. Our eyes met and she waved, smiling. I waved back. Minutes later, she approached. "Is the book helping?" she asked, pointing to the bag beside me where, coincidentally, I was carrying the book after rereading it during the afternoon at the beach. Surprisingly, yes. "Want some company?" In another time, I would have hesitated. I would have been suspicious. But the new Richard was learning to take risks again. Sure. Lucy was a history teacher at a local high school, divorced for 3 years, no kids. She liked French cinema, hated country music, and had a contagious laugh. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. I didn't mention Amanda, or the betrayal or the attack, not out of shame, but because for the first time in months that no longer seemed like the most important part of my story. We exchanged numbers. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company on a pleasant night in San Diego. The months passed. Winter hit the coast hard, bringing sharp winds and gray days. I started surfing despite the cold. There was something purifying about facing the icy waves, about feeling the power of the ocean, about learning to balance on instability. Every time I managed to stand on the board for a few more seconds, I felt a victory that went beyond the sport. Lucy and I became friends. Sometimes we went out for dinner, other times for walks on the beach. She introduced me to her circle of friends, simple and welcoming people who made me feel part of something again. I didn't tell her my whole story, but I shared bits and pieces. Enough for her to understand why certain subjects made me tense, why I sometimes withdrew when the conversation touched on trust and relationships. On one of those nights after dinner at her place, Lucy asked me, "Do you still love her? Your ex?" The question caught me off guard. I thought for a moment. Honestly, no, I don't love her, but I'm still learning not to hate her. She nodded, understanding. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. Then I still have a long way to go. She smiled. We all do. At work, things were also improving. I took on bigger, more challenging projects. My team respected me. Clients praised my approach. Charles, my old boss, who now supervised all the West Coast branches, mentioned a possible promotion. One night, sitting on the balcony of my apartment watching the city lights reflected in the bay, I received a notification on my phone. It was an email from the lawyer. The divorce papers were finalized. Amanda had signed everything without contesting. The house in Los Angeles would be sold, the assets divided as agreed. It was official. I was a single man again. Strangely, I felt neither joy nor sadness, just a sense of closure. A chapter closed, a page turned. I picked up my phone and opened the photo gallery. They were still there, archived in a folder I rarely opened. Our photos together. Amanda and I at the beach, at the restaurant of our first date, at the opening party of her salon. Memories of a life that no longer existed. I started deleting the photos, one by one, not with anger, not with resentment, but with the certainty of someone who no longer needs these reminders of the past. With each photo deleted, I felt a weight being removed. With each digital memory disappearing, the emotional memory also seemed to lose strength. 3 months later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to pick up. It was Amanda. Her voice was soft, trembling. She said she was sorry, that she missed me, that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. I listened, calm, silent. Then she asked the question, "Can we try again?" I looked out the window of my apartment in San Diego, watching the ocean where the waves gently broke on the sand. I thought about everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the blood, the silence, the peace. Then I said, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Amanda, but it's not me." She didn't reply immediately. Then she hung up. The sound of the phone being hung up didn't cause me anything. No pain, no regret. Just the confirmation that that chapter was truly closed. I went back to the table on the balcony, where I was working on my laptop. A new project for an important client, tight deadlines, a team trusting in my leadership, responsibilities that I embraced with a confidence I hadn't known before. My phone rang again. For a moment I thought, it was Amanda trying again, but it was Lucy. "Is it okay if I come over later? I have some Chilean wine a student gave me." I smiled. "Sure, I'll make something to eat. You don't need to go all out. You're as bad a cook as I am." We laughed. It was true, our culinary attempts together looked more like scientific experiments than meals. But it was fun, no pressure, no suffocating expectations. Just two adults enjoying each other's company, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes, comfortable silences. That night, while we opened the wine on the balcony, I told Lucy about Amanda's call. "And how did you feel?" she asked, without judgment in her voice. "At peace," I replied, and it was true. Like I could finally say I've moved on. She raised her glass. "To moving on, then." We toasted. The wine was good, the company even better. The sea breeze brought the smell of salt and freedom. "I received an offer," I commented after a moment, "to lead the company's expansion in Seattle." Lucy looked at me, eyebrows raised. Are you going to take it? I shook my head. I don't know. I just settled in here, made friends, built roots. She took a sip of wine, thoughtful. You know that roots aren't anchors, right? They can extend, grow in new directions. Philosophizing, Professor? She laughed. Just observing. You're not the same broken man I met at the bookstore, Richard. You're stronger now. More confident. More you. Her words touched something inside me. It was true. I was no longer that man who drove aimlessly away from Los Angeles, devastated by betrayal. I was no longer the one who wondered if he was too soft. I was someone new. Someone who had been through the fire and come out more tempered, not more fragile. And would you come visit me in Seattle? I asked, half joking, half serious. She smiled, that smile that lit up her eyes. I have a friend who works at a school there. I've always wanted to see the city. It wasn't a promise, it wasn't a commitment, it was just a possibility. And that was enough for now. The next day at lunchtime, I received an email from Mark. A surprise. We hadn't exchanged a word since that fateful night. The subject was simple. Sorry. The email was short. It said he didn't expect forgiveness, that he knew he had irreparably destroyed our friendship, that he lived with that guilt every day, that he was in therapy, trying to understand why he had done what he did, that he wished me to find happiness wherever I was. I didn't reply immediately. I didn't know if I ever would. But I also didn't feel anger when I read his words. Just a kind of distant understanding, like someone watching a scene from a movie they saw a long time ago. In the afternoon, during a meeting with my team, I noticed something important. I was smiling. Not a forced smile, not a professional mask. A genuine smile. I was happy to be there, to lead that group, to build something new. At the end of the day, I decided to take a walk on the beach before heading home. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink. Some families were still enjoying the late afternoon, children running on the sand, couples holding hands. I took off my shoes and felt the sand between my toes. I walked to the water's edge, letting the waves wet my feet. I took a deep breath. The salty air filled my lungs. I looked at the infinite horizon, at the line where the sky meets the sea, and I knew, with a certainty that came from the depths of my soul, that I would be okay, that the ghosts of the past no longer had power over me, that the future with all its uncertainties no longer scared me. I picked up my phone and called my boss. Charles, about the Seattle offer. I'm in. I walked back to the apartment with light steps. Night had completely fallen now, and the city lights twinkled around the bay. On the table on the balcony, the 2 wine glasses from the night before were still there. A promise of many more conversations, many more starry nights. I went inside and started packing my things. Not to run away, as I had from Los Angeles, but to move forward, to embrace what would come next, to continue my journey stronger, wiser, more complete. I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror as I brushed my teeth. I saw the eyes of a man who had survived the worst and discovered there was more inside him than he had ever imagined. A man who no longer needed to prove anything to anyone, not to an ex-wife, not to fake friends, not to himself. I simply was. And that finally was more than enough.